Kevin Jones, and Kevin is on it's just this sweet Bant deck. I guess it's just like a 4-color, no red Deathblade deck.
So I have to imagine that Kevin is going to be favored in this matchup. He is just set up extremely well to play a fair game. Cards like Knight of the Reliquary are going to be an absolute powerhouse in any kind of fair matchup. And he has the Stoneforge Mystic package, which he can equip on Vendilion Click to get through, or even, Titania or some of her tokens.
So we've got Kevin's going to start off with a Tropical Island and a Delver of Secrets. Nathan's just going to go ahead and bolt it. You got to bolt the bird.
Yeah,
not a Delver of Secrets. He had a Deathrite Shaman. Nathan's going to use a Volcanic Island. He's going to cast a Lightning Bolt. He's going to get Wastelanded by Kevin. And Kevin's just going to fetch with a Scalding Tarn here, get another Volcanic Island, and I have to imagine that we're probably going to see something like a Delver of Secrets, maybe even a Ponder.
Yeah, I have to imagine that if Kevin is able to resolve a Knight of the Reliquary, that is basically going to be a good game. Most Delver decks in Legacy are not equipped to deal with a Knight of the Reliquary. Sometimes they'll have a small number of Abrupt Decays, but mainly they're going to be relying on cards like Lightning Bolt and Permission.
If the Knight of the Reliquary isn't able to wasteland Nathan out of the game, something like Young Pyromancer might be able to hold the fort against a Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, it'll be able to hold the fort for some time, but if you equip a Batterskull or a Jite to another Reliquary, things change real fast.
Yeah, it's kind of big. So Kevin's just going to go ahead and use his Ponder, or Nathan's going to Ponder. Kevin's going to Brainstorm after playing a Misty Rainforest for his turn, and let's see what he can pull up with here. Now he does only have Deathrite Shaman is his 1-drop as far as creatures go, but he does have 4 Green Sun Zenith and a Dryad Arbor in his deck, so it can be basically anything or just a mana accelerant for 1 mana.
Yeah, pretty interesting deck on Kevin. Kevin isn't really known as being a brewer. A lot of times we see him playing Jeskai decks basically in all formats. We don't usually see him deviate from that too much, so I'm pretty excited to see Kevin play this deck. This is we're kind of watching Kevin Jones level up right now.
Yeah, he's growing.
Yeah, I mean, he was just a little nerdling before, but now he's grown up into a man nerd.
So Kevin is just going to Brainstorm and pass the turn back to Nathan, who is able to cast a Ponder. Looks like he's going to keep them. All right, he's going to keep his Ponder. Let's see if he has any more action. Looks like he does have a Deathrite Shaman, but he is just going to Wasteland. So both players are fighting the good fight here, attacking each other's mana.
The one way that Kevin can really break this up, though, is if he finds a Green Sun Zenith and gets a Dryad Arbor. That'll not only get him a land drop, but put him ahead on lands.
So Kevin just has another Misty Rainforest, and is going to pass the turn back to Nathan. He's going to use his Scalding Tarn for an Underground Sea, and he has 2 options. It looked like he had a Young Pyromancer in his hand, but it also looked like he had Deathrite Shaman, so he might just want to try and get Young Pyromancer going. It looked like Kevin had a couple copies of Swords to Plowshares in his hand, so whatever Nathan decides to deploy here, Kevin has some answers for it. Oh, so it looks like he just got a Deathrite Shaman and it passed back.
Nathan has to be not completely knowledgeable of what Kevin is playing, so Nathan may be playing around Daze here. And rightly so, because there's certainly a good chance that Kevin has it.
So Kevin, we've got this unholy matrimony yet again. Yeah. Underground Sea and Savannah.
Yep, the weirdest land combination.
Just happening all over.
So in a lot of ways, a good way to view this matchup is they're both creature decks with a lot of the same sort of spells. The main thing that is different is the creatures, and Kevin's creatures are generally much bigger. So that is probably going to be the thing that breaks the mirror. Also, Kevin's creatures are a little bit better in a board stall.
So Kevin's just going to find that Savannah with his Misty Rainforest, pass the turn back to Nathan, and then he's going to use the Swords to Plowshares in his upkeep.
A little bit of an interesting play to do it during Nathan's upkeep. It gives Nathan the option to activate his Deathrite Shaman on the way out, but it also means that if he's going to spend mana to protect it, he won't have that mana available for that turn.
So Nathan's just going to go ahead and let it die and deploy a Young Pyromancer, and I really like this here because he has a couple copies of Force Will in his hand, so he's going to be able to protect this Young Pyromancer and generate some advantage at the same time by using these Force Wills. Kevin does have another Swords to Plowshares, so he's going to use his Misty Rainforest, go get a Tundra, going to fall down to 18 in the process. But he's going to try and plow Nathan's Young Pyromancer, and this is more than likely going to get stopped by a Force of Will and generate a 1/1 token at the same time.
Yeah, and this Young Pyromancer may end up being a pretty big threat right now. Young Pyromancer is at its best when it is played early in the game, and while this isn't really early in the game, it's early enough where Nathan still has a stocked hand where he's going to be able to come out with a flurry of spells to follow it up and generate a lot of value.
So Nathan was able to use the Force of Will on the Swords to Plowshares to save his Young Pyromancer. Kevin does have a pretty sweet hand, though. I see a Brainstorm. Looks like there's also a Knight of the Reliquary and a Qasali Pridemage. So we're just going to go ahead and get a Brainstorm here to start. And if you can find another land, we might just see a Knight of the Reliquary get slammed here.
Man, it would have been nice to have that Daze last turn.
Yeah. So Kevin's going to put 2 cards back on top of his library from the Brainstorm. It's like, did he pick up a copy of Green Sun Zenith? He did, so he's going to use it for 1. And this is just going to go get another copy of Deathrite Shaman. Oh, but Nathan has a Daze, and Kevin's going to Daze back.
And Nathan would probably Daze anything at this point, but dazing something that can potentially get a Deathrite Shaman is extra good, because with that Deathrite Shaman on the board, that Daze is going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
And the Deathrite Shaman, notably being a 1/2, is particularly effective because it can hold back the 1/1 tokens. Can't hold back the Young Pyromancer, but Nathan is unlikely to trade the Young Pyromancer at this stage. So this Deathrite Shaman is actually going to do a lot of work on this board.
So Kevin's going to be able to replay that Tundra that he picked up from the Daze. I'm just going to pass the turn back to Nathan.
I really want to see Knight of the Reliquary hit the board. It doesn't get played enough in the format it's legal, but it is an absolute powerhouse. I mean, sometimes it's just a 10/10 for 3 mana.
That's true. Now, Nathan did pick up a copy of Cabal Therapy here, so it looks like we're more than likely going to be able to get rid of that Knight of the Reliquary.
Oh yeah, that Knight of the Reliquary is dead.
It's going to make a token at the same time. I'm just going to pass back to Kevin. No attacks, because again, those 1/1s don't attack very well into the 1/2. Kevin's just going to draw a card and pass the turn back to Nathan. Now, he does have that Deathrite Shaman, so he can go to work on Nathan's graveyard, try and get something going here, but Nathan has a copy of Deathrite Shaman for himself.
So it's kind of interesting to think who this board state favors. I would say, generally speaking, it favors Nathan just because he has more stuff, and that Young Pyromancer is a great card to have in a board sprawl when you have a fair amount of cantrips in your deck and you're likely to trade some spells. But if Kevin's not dying, he's got to feel pretty good, because with cards like Stoneforge Mystic and Knight of the Reliquary and Titania, Protector of Argoth, he's got some really powerful top decks that can basically take over the game in a way that Young Pyromancer can't really contend with.
Yeah, so Nathan's just going to go ahead and play a Pluto Delta, pass the turn back to Kevin. Now, he does have 5 mana available with that Deathrite Shaman. More than likely, the activation would be countered by Nathan. But let's see what happens here.
So what's interesting about this is Nathan can activate his Deathrite Shaman pretty freely, because he knows Kevin doesn't want to activate his in response, because Kevin wants to keep his Deathrite Shaman up as a blocker.
That is a good point. Now Kevin does have, looks like, another copy of Force of Will, a Wasteland, and a Delver of Secrets. Let's see if he keeps that Delver in his hand so that he has something to pitch to this Force of Will.
I have to imagine that Nathan wants to get the ball rolling in some way.
So we've got Nathan's going to play his Wasteland and then just pass the turn. Kevin's going to use his Abrupt Decay to take care of the Young Pyromancer and then eat it with a Deathrite Shaman.
Nathan doesn't have a green mana, and looks like he's unwilling to crack his fetch land to find one. So again, things were looking really good for Nathan with that Young Pyromancer, but not being able to push any damage. He wasn't really able to capitalize on the moment where he was ahead. And now Kevin Jones has a good chance of winning a longer game simply because he has more powerful cards in his deck.
Now Nathan does have that Force of Will and a Delver of Secrets in his hand, so if he's able to find an answer, to Kevin's Deathrite Shaman, then we could see those tokens start getting for damage. Now Nathan is going to eat. This is actually a really good play. So he's going to eat the land with the Deathrite Shaman, see if he can get Kevin to bite on trying to fight over it, and then play his Delver of Secrets, and then play his 5th land so that his Force of Will is still live that's in his hand.
Yeah, I like that play. That was a smart move. And this Delver is really what Nathan needs. It's pretty interesting that the young Pyromancer was not able to generate any pressure despite getting 3 triggers, but this Delver of Secrets is looking like it's going to be able to start attacking Kevin's life total.
So Kevin was able to find a copy of Ponder, which is good because he has so many high impact cards still left in his deck. So let's see what he decides to do with it as far as the keep or the shuffle.
Yeah, I would love to see Titania get online. That's a card that I have to imagine most of our viewers haven't seen.
She is real good.
Yeah, she's real good. I remember I was doing a little testing with my good friend Gerard Fabiano when this card first came out. And at first I was making fun of him. I was like, oh, you're playing a 5-mana creature that gets lightning bolted in Legacy? Ha 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 ha. And then he just destroyed me with it. Just really made me eat my words.
He's just like, well, I'll play it, wasteland you again, get a 5 power, get a 5/3.
Yeah, I think he was even playing it with crop rotation.
Oh,
so
geez.
It was just like, he had all kinds of shenanigans.
Did he have Zuran Orb?
No, he did. He was actually playing it in like a Nick Fit shell. I hope he's not getting mad at me for like spoiling his tech.
Now Nathan was able to flip his Delver with a Gitaxian Probe. So depending on what Kevin decided to do with that Ponder, let's see what we've got in hand.
And with Nathan paying mana to cast this Gitaxian Probe, I have to imagine that Kevin, that's basically a giveaway to Kevin that Nathan has a Force of Will in his hand.
Paying life instead of mana. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So Nathan was able to use his Force of Will, counter the Vendean Click. He's going to get to see Kevin's completely empty hand, and then draw a card off of that probe. Nathan is down to 13, though, and there's that active Deathrite Shaman on the other side, putting in some work.
Now that Nathan has a tropical island, he'll be able to start countering Kevin's activations to gain life. Have to imagine there's not even that many creatures in the graveyard, though.
So Nathan's going to attack Kevin down to 17. On Nathan's end step, Kevin Jones is going to use a Deathrite Shaman to make him lose 2 life, bringing him down to 11. I'm just going to draw and pass the turn back. So let's see what Nathan can find.
And both of these players are kind of flooding out. The board is relatively stable, but that Delver of Secrets is going to be able to get some damage in. And Kevin doesn't have that many cards that interact with flyers. He has just a couple Swords to Plowshares, and he's got Umezawa's Jitte and Batterskull. He's got 2 Abrupt Decays also. He actually has 2 Jays. So actually maybe he has a fair number of things to interact with the Delver of Secrets, but he certainly needs to draw one soon because he's going to have a hard time racing back, especially with those young Pyromancer tokens able to block a really big Knight of the Reliquary if you would draw one.
So it looks like that Kevin actually ate a creature last turn, so put himself up to 19. His Swords to Plowshares on Nathan's Flip Delver of Secrets, Insect Elaboration, if you will, is going to bring him up to 16. He does have a replacement copy, and so here he is going to cash in his Wasteland and hit Nathan's Black Source, so he no longer has a black source of mana.
Ooh, is that a Fire and Ice?
He is able to flip that with a Fire and Ice. That's a big game because that's going to kill that Deathrite Shaman and allow the rest of his creatures to start attacking.
And now finally the value that Nathan generated off his young Pyromancer is actually going to do something.
So it looks like Kevin's going to try and eat a creature in response. Nathan's going to eat that creature in response. Going to send in for 6. And now Kevin's on an actual clock here.
Yeah, now Kevin really needs to top deck something quickly.
So it looks like they both have a copy of Daze in their hand, but Kevin just drew a new card. I'm not quite sure what it is yet. Let's see if he has any action. He's just going to pass the turn back.
So this is getting a little scary because as soon as Kevin gets, after he takes this hit, he's got to worry about, even if he answers the Delver of Secrets and can block the tokens, the Deathrite Shaman can finish him off. So things are looking pretty grim for Kevin at this point.
That card's just so good.
Deathrite Shaman?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does everything. It slices, it dices.
Yeah, if you're going to put Deathrite Shaman in your deck, you gotta get your vaccination shots, because that card is sick.
So we've got an attack for 6 from Nathan. Going to bring Kevin down to 5. He does have that Deathrite Shaman. Kevin Jones, you can play that Jace, but I'm not quite sure what exactly it's going to do. Looks like it's going to get dazed. He does not have any creatures on the battlefield. And that's all she wrote. So Nathan is going to go ahead and take game 1 here in the Deathrite Shaman mirror match. Both players are playing 4-color. However, Nathan has red, Kevin has white. So we got Grixis Delver. He's going to take game 1 over Bant Deathblade. Let's take a look at the sideboards and see what kind of cards we have here. Kevin Jones has 2 Zealous Persecution, 2 Envelope. Envelope. We got a Sigarda, Host of Herons. Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
We got a Force of Will, Sword of Fire and Ice, an Abrupt Decay, a Life from the Loam, a Gadok Teeg, 1 copy of Null Rod, 1 copy of Nihil Spellbomb, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Maze of Ith, and a Bajuka Bog. What do you think Kevin's going to do?
So I think Kevin has quite a few options. I really like Zealous Persecution. It's one of the best ways to deal with Young Pyromancers and his tokens, and it has the potential to snipe a Delver of Secrets if it hasn't flipped yet. Some of the other, I also like Abrupt Decay, and the other cards are a little interesting. I don't think he would bring in Sigarda, but if he just wants to take out his Force of Wills and play super fair, that's something he could look to. Sort of Fire and Ice, same thing. He could also go through a route where he's actually bringing in Life from the Loam, and if he does, he could bring in Maze of Ith. I'm not 100% sure if I would bring those in. But I definitely think he'll bring in the Zealous Persecutions and the Abrupt Decay and the Sword of Fire and Ice.
Now on Nathan's side, we've got 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Abrupt Decay, 1 Flusterstorm, 1 Dismember, 1 Engineered Explosives, 1 Null Rod, 1 Pithy Needle, 1 copy of Dread of Night, a Pyroblast, a Tormod's Crypt, a Vendean Click, a Grafdigger's Cage, and a Smash to Smithereen. What do we got going on here?
So the cards that I like out of Nathan's deck are the Abrupt Decay. I like the Dismember. I like the Dread of Night might actually be a consideration, but probably not. Pyroblast is probably worth bringing in. Vendilion Click, it has some utility against Stoneforge Mystic, and it's just another good evasive flyer to get some damage in. And then Smash to Smithereens is certainly a card he may want to bring in, although he didn't see Stoneforge Mystic. I have to imagine he assumes that it's there.
Yeah, when you have these Deathblade decks, Stoneforge Mystic, along with Swords to Plowshares, is what you assume they're going to have if they're on white.
Exactly. And, Kevin's deck, it's a lot like the Esper Deathblade decks. He's just playing Knight of the Reliquary instead of True Name Nemesis. And I would have to imagine that that's basically how Nathan is interpreting this situation.
So while Kevin and Nathan finished up sideboarding, let's take a quick look at some information on the StarCityGames.com State and Provincial Championships. That's coming up April 23rd and 24th, 2016. Go to StarCityGames.com/stores for information, but it's 62 locations in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. Saturday is standard and Sunday is modern. And you can get some sweet things from this tournament.
Yeah, Star City is just going global. They are all over the place. No longer in the U.S. We are moving on out.
So we've got these limited edition prints that you'll be able to get for playing in the event while supplies last. The state and provincial championships. The art is depicting one is the past city and one is the future city. And these are also going to be available as playmats for top 8 in the events.
Yeah, really sweet.
So let's go ahead and jump back to our match. We've got Kevin Jones on Bant Deathblade against Nathan Golia on Grixis Delver. Kevin is down a game on the play and he's going to lead off with a Savannah and cast a Green Sun Zenith for 0, which is going to get a Dryad Arbor. It is a green creature, so you can find that with Green Sun Zenith. Honestly, one of the reasons the card was banned in Modern.
Yeah, a very powerful play. It puts Kevin ahead on mana. He also has the option to attack with the Dryad Arbor. Probably not one of the better things to do with Dryad Arbor, but certainly better to attack than not be able to.
Yeah, it carries equipment very well. I don't know if you've ever seen trees with a bunch of swords and size, but it's scary.
In Sugarloaf, we have those.
Yeah. So
if you go hiking up Sugarloaf Mountain, you'll see a few of those, actually.
So Nathan's going to lead off with a Gitaxian Probe, paying 2 life, going down to 18. He's going to see a hand that has a Bayou, along with an Umezawa's Jite, and Zealous Persecution, and some other action. But he does have a Delver of Secrets that he's going to play, and it might just die here to that Zealous Persecution.
Yeah, Kevin doesn't have Snapcaster Mage, and he only has 2 Zealous Persecutions, so I could certainly see him trying to save his Zealous Persecution for a better spot. It's a limited resource, and he knows that the Grixis deck plays multiple Young Pyromancers.
So Kevin's just going to play a Windswept Heath, and he's tanking on his turn. We are going to get an Umezawa's GT deployed. Playing around Daze by having that Windswept Heath available.
Yeah, and this is a pretty reasonable play. Getting that GT onto the board is safer than having it in his hand. He's seen Cabal Therapy, and generally speaking, the Grixis decks, they may have 1 or 2 pieces of artifact removal, but not that many. So getting that GT into play before his mana starts getting pressured allows him to get through Daze, and does it in the shortest amount of time so that he can also kind of play around Force of Will being in the next couple cards of Nathan's library.
So Nathan is going to brick on his Delver of Secrets flipping, but he does have a Brainstorm, so that's going to set up his hand as well as guarantee that his Delver will flip next turn if he wants it. If he wants it. Now, if he doesn't need this mana this turn, he can play a fetch land, flip the Delver, and then still use his fetch land in his upkeep. But it looks like we're just going to play a Wasteland, and he might even just cash it in now.
Yeah, one of the other nice things about Kevin's play was with the GT in play, he could threaten activating or equipping it to the Dryad Arbor if Nathan tapped out. But that Wasteland is going to make it so that Kevin probably won't take that line of play.
Now it looks like Nathan has a Smash to Smithereens in his hand, which could end up being very good and cutting Kevin off this valuable resource in the GT if he decides to sink a bunch of mana into it.
I have to imagine that Kevin is not going to try to equip the GT. It's more likely that he's going to try to do things that are a bit more effective with his mana, because paying 2 mana, well, 3 mana potentially with the Dryad Arbor getting killed is going to set him really far behind if Nathan's able to answer his whole turn with just his land drop.
So Kevin's going to go ahead and go down to 18 here using his Windswept Heath. He's going to find a Tundra, which is going to open up blue mana for him, something that he did not have access to until just now. So he does have stuff like Brainstorm. Looks like he also has a Swords to Plowshares that he can use if he decides to. He's got a lot of options here.
Yeah, I really like plowing the Delver. I just want to get that off the board. If Kevin can preserve his life total, he has the more powerful cards. He can be pretty sure that he's going to win the longer game. But he may want to Brainstorm just so that he gets more information.
It's like he found a copy of Green Sun Zenith with that Brainstorm, which could end up being very good for him.
Yeah. That Wasteland can also be quite good.
Yeah, with Nathan playing the Wasteland there, that he could be protecting himself from that Dryad Arbor, but he also could just not have another land.
I also like Wastelanding just so that you can play around Daze.
So Kevin's going to Wasteland that Underground Sea, pressing his mana advantage. Looks like he's also going to plow this Deathrite Shaman potentially, or this Delver of Secrets potentially. There's a chance that he waits until the upkeep so he can see what is revealed on the trigger.
Yeah. And Kevin really doesn't care about giving his opponent a few extra life points when he's going to be winning the game with cards like Batterskull, GT, and Knight of the Reliquary. It's like, who cares about 3 life?
Yeah, so he's able to gain some information there with that Ponder. Looks like Nathan does have another land in his hand, which is fortunate for him.
And Nathan played his Wasteland to threaten killing the Dryad Arbor. But we're getting to the point where he may want to just kill the Dryad Arbor sooner rather than later, because Kevin's moving into 2 spells a turn territory, and that is predicated on how much mana he has. Yeah, so if Nathan can kill that Dryad Arbor, he may be able to cut Kevin off from an extra play on his turn.
Especially with the Deathrite Shaman there, I would have liked seeing the Dryad Arbor get axed.
For sure. If Kevin had a blue land, he may be able to land a Jace here with that 4th land.
Looks like we might see a Green Sun Zenith for 2, which could potentially get something like Scavenging Ooze.
It looks like he may just be going for the Knight of the Reliquary. I do like the idea of grabbing a Scavenging Ooze. It's big enough to attack through the Deathrite Shaman and hold the Jite. Maybe it gets bolted, but if you get a Knight of the Reliquary, the Deathrite Shaman can just exile land and your Knight will be a 3/3 anyway.
Yep.
And
so looks like Kevin is going to go ahead and go get that Knight of the Reliquary.
yeah, and currently it's a 4/4, so if he can untap with it, that Knight's going to do work. Nathan would really like to have a Lightning Bolt here.
Yeah. He does have a Ponder. He could potentially find one.
And if Nathan had wastelanded one of Kevin's lands, he would have cut Kevin off from that play. The other thing, too, is now he's kind of priced into either killing the Knight of the Reliquary or at least smash to smithereensing the Jite, since it is likely to just take over the game.
So Nathan is going to fire off that Ponder, and let's see what he can find. Like you said, a Wasteland or a Lightning Bolt would be perfect, because then he could eat a land out of Kevin's graveyard with the Deathrite Shaman, cast the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, and whether it's Legacy or Modern, it's usually pretty rare to be able to Lightning Bolt a Knight of the Reliquary. It's kind of akin to Lightning Bolting a Tarmogoyf. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. So when you have the opportunity to do so, you really want to take advantage of it. But it looks like he does not have a Lightning Bolt. Otherwise, I think he would have just fired it off by now. So we may see a situation where Kevin's deck is just too strong. But Nathan may keep digging, see what he can find.
So Nathan's going to use his Pluto Delta here. He's going to fall down to 19, get a Volcanic Island. This is going to give him access to some more mana. But that Knight of the Reliquary is going to be poised to take this game over. He did find a Lightning Bolt.
So currently it's oh, he did exile land, good. And he's got both plays, good for him. So that was a really powerful sequence of events for Nathan. He really cleared up the board.
Man, he seemed kind of somber when he was going through all those motions.
Yeah.
I would be happy. This is a great spot to be in.
Yeah, from me reading his body language from over here, it looked like he just didn't have what he was looking for.
Yeah.
But, you know, good poker face on that side of the table.
So he's going to pass back to Kevin. Looks like Kevin found a Deathrite Shaman to go along with that Zealous Persecution that's in his hand.
The Karakas is not doing a whole lot in his deck. I wonder, you know, sometimes when I play Delver decks, I like to board out Wastelands. And I wonder if this is a situation where Kevin may want to board out his Karakas. I think it really only helps with his 2 Vendilion clicks.
Yeah, I mean, maybe a Bojuka Bog would have been good, although they are both Deathrite Shaman decks.
Yeah.
Nathan is able to land a giant monster 5/5 Gurmag Angler here, delving away a bunch of cards in his graveyard.
Yeah, it would have been really nice if Kevin had the Knight of the Reliquary still, but not so much.
Ooh, and
wow,
Nathan's
powerful.
gonna cut him off from white mana. Good thing he's got that Karakas, right?
Nathan has a strong poker face and is a big meanie, just wiping out Kevin's mana, knocking out all of his plays, not letting Kevin do any of the fun things that he wants to do with his sweet deck.
Now it looks like Kevin was able to find a Knight of the Reliquary, which is going to be monstrous.
So how monstrous is it going to be? I believe there's 3 lands in the graveyard.
At least.
So it's currently a 5/5. It can tangle with the Gurmag Angler, but that Deathrite Shaman is gonna do a lot to mitigate how big it is.
Looks like Nathan has a couple copies of Delver of Secrets in his hand. Just gonna send in.
Yeah, I like that move.
I wonder if it's worth it for Kevin to double block that Gurmag Angler.
Well, he would. Maybe. I don't know. The Knight of the Reliquary has quite a bit of utility because he can just start fetching up Wastelands and just, you know, locking Nathan out of the game.
Now that Zealous Persecution was able to take care of both copies of Delver of Secrets that Nathan had deployed.
Yeah, very impressive.
He does have a Swords to Plowshares in his hand that he picked up, so he will be able to use that Knight if he wants to generate some more mana. I think he just might be trying to... Oh, he's going to sacrifice.
Yeah. He may also get a Maze of Ith if it's in his deck. He had one in the sideboard, and it was something that I thought he might be able to bring in, but it's a little treacherous against a Wasteland deck that's going to be pressuring your mana. Having a land that doesn't tap for mana can be a little annoying, but it certainly seems like a matchup where it would be reasonable. If he has it, I think that he'd get it here. So if he doesn't get it here, I'm going to assume that he doesn't have it in his deck.
So Kevin's just going to use his Neither Reliquary, sacrifice in his Bayou. Going to get a Misty Rainforest, use the Misty Rainforest. He's going to go get a Savannah, and so now he's going to be able to cast the Swords to Plowshares. And I think that he might just hit... Oh, he's going to hit the Gurmag Angler instead of the Deathrite Shaman.
And now Kevin has a powerhouse board against Nathan's not much. So we've really seen the seesaw back and forth. We've seen turns where it looked like Nathan was dominating the board, and now we're seeing turns where it looks like Kevin's dominating the board. And a real seesaw.
It all comes down to situations where players are
oh, look at this.
Oh,
the Zealous Persecution. Did he forget about it?
No, he's just eating the land on the instant.
Oh, man, that would have been so insane.
So, and this is all boiled down to, we've seen these crazy back and forth turns that just all revolve around one mana removal spells. Lightning Bolt on one side, Swords to Plowshares on the other. That really is some of the defining cards of the Legacy format.
Well, a lot of it just has to do with the best way to get ahead of your opponent is by casting a bunch of cheap cards that are still good enough to be impactful plays on the board, and the best way to catch up is to have cheap cards of your own. You know, if all the threats are 1 and 2 mana, mostly 1 mana, then you have to have most of your answers be 1 mana.
So Nathan was able to find a young Pyromancer and pass the turn back to Kevin, but he does have an active Knight of the Reliquary, which could pose a big problem for Nathan.
So it looks like Kevin is going to get on the Wasteland plan, which is a good plan to be on. Young Pyromancer's not so great if you don't have spells to cast.
And that Knight just keeps growing every time that happens.
Yeah, that Knight is huge. That Knight's been working out at the gym, and he is jacked.
Again, that Tarmogoyf gym.
Yeah, the Tarmo gym.
So Nathan was able to find a Deathrite Shaman. Just going to pass it back to Kevin, who's going to use a Misty Rainforest in his end step and go down to 8. So we're just going to get a Tropical Island, and looks like he's going to try and eat one of those Delveroof Secrets. Kind of pad his life total.
Yep.
Give his Neither Reliquary some time to power up, Dragon Ball Z style, and then he's finally going to attack.
Yeah. I feel like Kevin is going to try to reach a threshold where he's at maybe a 2-turn clock. And we may be out there now, but this may only be a 3-turn clock. The Deathrite Shamans certainly make things messy.
6. So it looks like there's 6 lands, so it's an 8/8.
Yep.
The Deathrite Shaman's going to take care of one of them.
It looked like Kevin thought about denying Nathan the mana, but decided it wasn't worth it.
I wonder, if I was Kevin, I probably would have just played that Windswept Heath before I attacked. That way I could sacrifice it and guarantee that I get an 8 points of damage.
Yeah, on the other hand, 8 versus 7 may not be a big difference, but having a fetch land with a Brainstorm could be a big difference. So I certainly agree, if you want to do the damage, then cracking it pre-combat is better, but there can be value in holding it for Brainstorm.
So Nathan just finds a 3rd copy of Deathrite Shaman. Pass the turn back to Nathan, who's going to sit on that fetch land. I think the Knight's big enough to where it's going to be a 2-turn clock no matter what happens. Nathan's going to eat a couple of the lands.
Yeah, this Knight is shrinking.
So looks like we've got 4, 5, 6, 7. I wonder if Kevin just doesn't have any more. Oh, there's an Underground Sea.
He's got to be getting to the point where he's running out. Can't get Underground Sea with Windswept Heath.
No, fortunately not. Again, that Underground Sea, Savannah, Unholy Matrimony, just not working out.
He would like Underground Sea, though, because it would potentially allow him to start activating his Deathrite Shaman to do damage.
So Nathan's going to go down to 8.
Pretty low.
Kevin's going to have another Deathrite Shaman.
A lot of Deathrite Shamans. I would like to be an innocent bystander and walk over and just Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, right?
That would be a fun thing to do. And the first token is online.
So Nathan found a Brainstorm. He's going to go ahead and cash that in, get a token from his Young Pyromancer, which is actually going to be pretty good. If he can keep chaining some spells, it'll give him ways to chump that Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah. Again, though, that's sort of just treading water. That's not really getting him ahead. And as soon as that Knight of the Reliquary gets small enough where its attack isn't going to be particularly powerful, or maybe now that there's a chump blocker, Kevin may take the opportunity to just use the Knight to get another Wasteland and waste Nathan. So that Knight is still going to have a fair amount of usefulness, even if it's not able to attack and connect.
So it looks like we've got Nathan and Kevin are going to be doing some battles with Deathrite Shaman, but Nathan was able to delve out a Gurmag Angler. So as long as he can keep that Knight under a 5/5, this could change the game.
Yeah. Kevin really wants to see a card like Jace here. Jace would be really good.
Ooh, looks like that might have been a Green Sun Zenith that he picked up.
Oh, that would be good. And he has enough mana to get Titania. That would be really sweet. Tutor for Titania, use Knight of the Reliquary to get some Titania triggers.
So it looks like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
We might see a Titania.
I would love that.
If he left it in.
And once it gets on the board, if he can untap it with it once, I mean, he's got a Caracas, so it's never going away. The thing that's a little tricky, though, is Nathan still has a Deathrite Shaman. So it looks like Kevin is going to play it a little safer and not use up his Deathrite Shaman activation if he doesn't have to, and use the Knight of the Reliquary to generate the extra mana to get the 5-point Green Sun Zenith. If he had used the Deathrite Shaman, it was likely that Nathan would have just used his own Deathrite Shaman to counter it.
Yeah, so now the Titania is going to target the card in the graveyard, right? So the Deathrite Shaman can counter the Titania activation. Yeah, it targets the land.
Yeah. So it might have been better for Kevin to use the Deathrite Shaman.
Make him use the Deathrite, and then use the Titania. That way you can get a fetch land and then make a 5/3.
Yeah. Either way, this 5/3 should be pretty good on this board. We'll see if Nathan can top deck a Lightning Bolt. That would be the ideal thing. So a little choked off on mana in certain ways, but he does have all those Deathrite Shamans.
So Nathan was able to find a copy of Scalding Tarn. We might see some attacks here.
He's got to be a little worried about that Titania. Hopefully he knows what it does. He didn't do the usual reach my hand over, grab it, and read it.
Pick it up and read.
That's fairly interesting. I wonder if he has like a Forked Bolt.
Could be. Or maybe like Fire Ice.
Maybe Fire Ice. That Young Pyromancer attack is certainly suspicious.
So he's going to attack with the Gurmag Angler, the Young Pyromancer. Deathrite Shaman's going to chump a Gurmag Angler. And then Nathan's going to pass the turn back to Kevin Jones, who's on 9.
And Kevin should be able to do some fun things from this point on now that that Titania's in play. Wow, and he's got an Abrupt Decay in his hand too. It's a good card. A little uncastable at the moment, though.
Yeah, the Knight of the Reliquary can find a black source, though.
Yeah. Well, I hope so. At some point, we got to start running out of lands from Kevin's deck. I think I might have seen an Underground Sea as Kevin was shuffling through, but that is certainly something to think about, is Kevin can run out of lands.
Well, Nathan's going to start going to work on Kevin's life total with those Deathrite Shamans, though, so he really only has a couple turns.
Yeah. And Kevin might want to use this opportunity to get a Deathrite Shaman activation, because it's something that he's not going to be able to do particularly frequently, considering his opponent has 3 and he only has 1.
Oh, we're going to get a 5/3 token. Do the tokens have trample?
I don't think so.
Are they just 5/3s?
They're just 5/3s. Just trades with your Gurmag Angler, just your Young Pyromancer, and everything else.
Just 5/3s.
Oh, and you're at 6 life with a fetch land. It's nice how that works out.
We got these Deathrite Shamans, though.
Yeah, the Deathrite Shamans are going to do a lot. Quite the 1-drop.
Man, if there's ever a spot where Kevin gets to bounce his Titania and then recast it to get another land from his graveyard, that could be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, imagine what Kevin could do if Nathan didn't have 3 Deathrite Shamans. This game would look a lot different, and Kevin would be pulling all kinds of shenanigans.
Yeah. Kevin is going to be able to kill one of Nathan's Deathrite Shamans, though. Ooh, he's going to fetch and go down to 5.
So is Kevin going to try to kill the Deathrite Shaman or the Young Pyromancer?
He just targeted Deathrite Shaman.
Okay.
And he's going to Spell Snare the...
Just for the token.
The Abrupt Decay to get a token, which will give him another chump blocker.
That's a really aggressive use of Spell Snare, but I like it. Kevin's at 5. Nathan is going to be looking to finish this game out in short order, because he knows that as Kevin sets up shop, Nathan can get locked out of the game.
Ooh, now if Nathan decides to attack with his Gurmag Angler, Kevin could block with his Dryad Arbor and get a 5/3 token.
Yeah. Sweet how that works out.
Man, Titania's a sweet Magic card.
Really is. It's a bit of a sleeper in Legacy, I would say.
So Nathan just picks up a copy of Ponder here. Let's see what we can find.
Uh-oh, he's doing math. Kevin has got to be sweating this a little bit. His life total is pretty low.
Oh, if it's a Lightning Bolt, he's probably just dead, right? Just attacks with everything.
Probably.
Well, one of those elementals can attack. Yeah, so we'll take 1.
Yeah, and with the Deathrite Shaman activation and the Lightning Bolt, Kevin's just dead, so
yeah,
this attack might be superfluous.
That's true. Or if it's a Forked Bolt, then he needs to get in a point of damage.
Yep.
Does he have Forked Bolt in this deck?
Nathan tapped his mana.
Yeah, it looks like Kevin's trying to finish the combat. Oh, yeah, he was just dead without the attack.
And the poker face just stoically kills him.
It was just dead without the attack, actually.
Yep, dead without the attack. Still had you dead in all these ways.
So Nathan Golia is going to take the match against Kevin Jones, 2-0 on his Grixis Delver deck. Kevin Jones is on Bant Deathblade. Nathan's going to go to 6-1. Kevin's going to fall to 5-2. Back's going to be against the wall. He's going to need to keep winning out.
Oh, Kevin actually took that game. So I guess he wasn't dead and was able to win on the crackback. Is that what happened? Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. So we might have had life totals wrong. Either way, the thing that I really like about this situation is we're just getting to see Kevin Jones level up. I mean, he's just played Jeskai decks forever. He's always played Splinter Twin in Modern. He's always played, Dark Jeskai, Classic Jeskai. He played the Sphinx's Revelation Jeskai deck in Standard. And, seeing Kevin play a new deck, which looks more or less his own creation. I don't know if he got it from one of his friends or something like that. But overall, I haven't seen a deck quite like this, and it's pretty exciting to see Kevin Jones do it. I know he's been taking Magic a lot more seriously since he's been doing so well on the Star City tour, and all around, what a guy.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at his player profile. Kevin Jones is 28 years young, from Kingstown, New York. He has 8 Open top 8s, 1 Open win. He won the Eternal Weekend Legacy Champion with Blue Red Delver. He played college tennis at Pace University as a walk-on after teaching himself the game against a brick handball wall at the age of 10. That sounds like a book or a movie.
Yeah.
The old Rudy, Kevin.
Yep.
He enjoys reading. He reads at least 1 mystery or suspense novel every week. Do you think he's a big Harry Potter fan? I think he's a big Harry Potter fan.
Sounds like it. Me and Kevin Jones actually have a lot in common. He plays at my local store, Toy Wiz, for basically the last, 4 or 5 years of playing Magic. A lot of it, I've been seeing him at my F&M. So, he's one of the hometown heroes for us. Another thing that we have in common is me and him have the same number of Open top 8s and Open wins, which is kind of cool.
Really?
Yeah.
So you guys are like twin bros?
Oh yeah, we're bros.
We're bros?
We're bros, yep. We're friends on Facebook and everything. It's real when you're friends on Facebook, right?
So it looks like the players are just down to about 4 minutes to go, so they're going to be playing lightning fast. Nathan has an Underground Sea and a Deathrite Shaman. Kevin has a Bayou. Looks like he's resolving a Green Sun's Zenith for 0, which is going to get a Dryad Arbor. Nathan looks like he used a Wasteland on a Savannah and a Lightning Bolt on the Deathrite Shaman. So these players are just playing lightning fast. Let's see if we can keep up.
Yeah, the main thing that they're going to want to do is just develop their mana and then develop a threat base. We saw the mana was something that both of them were jockeying for in various ways. Not only do they have Deathrite Shamans to get them ahead, but Kevin Jones also has Green Sun Zenith and Dryad Arbor, and each side also has Wastelands. So that'll be one of the easier ways to cut the opponent off from being able to get ahead on tempo. And in addition to that, they have their haymakers like Knight of the Reliquary or Gurmag Angler, Young Pyromancer, Stoneforge Mystic, and the like.
Now, with both players already having 1 loss and the number of players in this tournament looking like X2 is going to be the cutoff for day 2, a draw is essentially going to be the same as a loss. So both of these players are going to be playing pretty quick. They're going to be trying to get as much action going as possible to try and finish this game in time. Kevin's going to use an Abrupt Decay to take care of that Deathrite Shaman. Nathan's going to eat a Brainstorm out of his own graveyard to do some damage to Kevin. And he's going to go ahead and use his Misty Rainforest to go find a Tundra. And let's see what he's casting. Maybe a Deathrite Shaman of his own. No, that's a Tundra. That can't cast Deathrite Shaman. A Brainstorm. Yeah. Ponder.
There we go. I knew you'd get it eventually. The one nice thing is that while Legacy is typically a format where games get drawn out, a lot of the times games don't last that many turns. It's just that the turns take a long time. So if they can rush through a bunch of these opening turns, even though each player only has 5 turns, or there's 5 turns total once time is called in the round, which we're 2 minutes away from, either of these players may be able to clear out the game in the amount of time needed.
Now, Kevin doesn't have any white mana sources. Nathan was able to Wasteland him off another white mana source, hitting his Tundra, land a Gurmag Angler, so he has a big 5/5. Now, Kevin did pick up a Source to Plowshares this turn, but like I said, he doesn't have white mana to be able to cast it. So he's going to use a Green Sun Zenith for 1, go get a copy of Deathrite Shaman to try and turn on his white mana. And Nathan just looks like he has a bunch of land in his hand.
Yeah, this 5/5 is still the best thing going on in this board. Also, because they're so short on time, we'll probably see each of these players take plays that may not always give them the best odds of winning, but they'll give them the best odds of winning quickly.
So Nathan's going to go ahead and fire off another Wasteland on that Bayou, pass the turn back to Kevin. I imagine Kevin's just going to eat a land and Swords to Plowshares the Gurmag Angler.
Yeah, Kevin's a little priced into this play.
Oh, and we have a Spell Pierce from Nathan.
And that is pretty vicious.
That is going to be rough.
And there's not a whole lot Kevin can do here. He's behind on mana. Well, I shouldn't say that he's behind on mana, but he's really choked off on mana.
He's stuck on colors. He does have another Green Sun Zenith in his hand. Ooh, let's see what this Cabal Therapy is going to hit. Got a Zenith, a Titania, and a Umezawa's Jite. He named his Stoneforge and missed. So Kevin found a Wasteland. This is going to let him cast a Scavenging Ooze, not a Titania.
So that is a pretty nice card in this situation. I don't know how many creatures are in the graveyard.
Looks like there was one, so he's going to be able to eat that Deathrite Shaman, make a 3/3, gain a life, but he's still a little under-equipped to handle this 5/5.
If he can draw a land next turn, he can potentially play Jite, equip it, attack for 3, and gain 4. He would be dead to a Lightning Bolt, but he would be on his way to closing out the game.
So
while keeping his life total safe.
So Nathan's going to go ahead and attack with that Gurmag Angler, and then just fetch, use a Scalding Tarn, go get a red source, play a Young Pyromancer, and this is turn 1 of turn. So he's going to have 2 more turns after this, and Kevin's only going to have 2 turns to try and close this game out. Now he's way far behind, so I have to imagine at this point he's just trying to play to put himself into a position where, you know, he might be ahead and hope that Nathan decides to concede.
Yeah, I have to imagine so. Nathan has a good chance of closing this game out. At any moment, if he can draw a Lightning Bolt, things could just be over. And even as it stands, Nathan is the one with more pressure. So I have to imagine that Nathan has pretty good odds of closing this game out, and it'll be interesting to see how quickly he's able to do so.
So it looks like we've got a judge question.
So one thing I'm a little surprised about, and obviously this is kind of a small sample size, but as we entered the matchup and I was looking at the deck lists, I really thought that Kevin would be advantaged in a longer game simply because a lot of his creatures were bigger, but we've never really been able to see Stoneforge Mystic get online. And the one time that we saw an equipment, it got smashed to smithereens pretty quickly, despite the fact that Nathan has very few smashes to even play. So, not 100% sure.
So it looks like he cast Cabal Therapy, sacrificing the Young Pyromancer to get rid of the Green Sun Zenith. I have to imagine that the judge question was, do I get a 1/1?
Right. Makes sense.
So it looks like we've got a Brainstorm is going to happen here. Now Kevin is at 3, so he is going to have to chump this 5/5. Ooh, he is going to be able to eat that Young Pyromancer, go up to 4 and make a 4/4. But Nathan does have found a Brainstorm.
And if Nathan attacks, Kevin can potentially double block and be left with at least one of his creatures, which would be a good play.
Which is what we're going to see.
Yep.
And with this being in turns, I guess I'm fine with the attack, but this is going to be real rough.
Yeah. And now Kevin is safe from a Lightning Bolt. He really has no offense, but it looks like we're going to be stuck in a draw scenario, which is not particularly exciting. Really don't like draws, but they happen. This is just the way it goes sometimes.
So it looks like Kevin is actually going to gain 2 life by eating that Scavenging Ooze that's in his graveyard. Turn's going to go back to Nathan. He's going to have one last turn here to see if he can get anything going. This is why I like playing Show and Tell.
Yeah, I like playing Show and Tell for this reason too. You're never in this situation. The game is just over, and you usually have time to get lunch. But it looks like these guys are going to draw, and basically have their backs against the wall.